Welcome everyone, and I'm so happy to have you here today. My name is Petra. I'm a demand generation manager at Younium, and I will be your host today for the next 45 minutes. Today, we are talking about the autonomous revenue lifecycle and how AI agents will run modern SaaS operations. We are so excited to dig into this with you. Before I hand over to our speakers, just a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar will be recorded. You'll receive the recording plus some key takeaways from us in the next couple of days. And we really would love to have this webinar as a conversation and not as a lecture. So I encourage you, please just drop your thoughts and your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat, which you find below, and we will answer them. We also saved some time for that. All right, I think it's time to hand over to our speakers, who will introduce themselves. Niclas, let's start with you.
Sure. My name is Niclas. I'm founder and CEO of Younium. And by my side, I got Erik, a seasoned veteran in the space, who's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in revenue operations and billing. A question that is currently occupying a lot of great minds and companies at this moment is, all companies would like to be autonomous, efficient, and perfect. What's stopping them? And today we will dive into that topic. And before we say the word AI even once, let's name the thing every finance team in tech quietly lives with. Erik, when you walk into a workshop, talking about revenue operations, recurring and variable billing, revenue recognition, reconciliation, etc., where's the human glue actually sitting?
Yeah, but I would say, looking at like all the companies that I've met and talked to in general, right? It's all the manual handoffs between like you have the deal in the CRM, you kind of do the sales process in there, right? And then you get hopefully you get a closed one deal, and then it needs to move to a billing tool, and then someone manually needs to hand it off from sales to sales operations or finance or whoever it could be, right? And they manually need to put it in somewhere, right? And then it's going to generate an invoice. And then on top of that, we have a renewal coming up. So then someone needs to it's all of those kind of manual handoffs through like the customer lifecycle journey, I would say in general. That kind of, you have that kind of human glue that kind of gets stuck in there, right? And I don't think nobody really wants it like that, right? They want that perfect like customer lifecycle. That's the end goal, right?
It doesn't sound like autonomous. It sounds more like a relay race run by humans.
Yeah, exactly. More like that, yes, I would say.
And I mean, there are a lot of challenges in this domain, and I think everyone can relate. But I mean, how hard can it be? One of my favorite things to say. Everyone gets very annoyed, but still, how hard can it be? I mean, maybe like a bit of a cynical view is we've had some 10 years of SaaS tools. Why are companies still stuck? I mean, in some cases, there are probably some good, acceptable reasons, right? I mean, for instance, if you're seeing great new logo growth and you just want to double down on that rather than fixing your backend, that might be a great investment decision, right? Maybe you don't want to go for tooling and automation, but at some time it will come back to haunt you, but it's still reasonable, right? All companies, all people, we have to make decisions where to invest in every moment. But I would still argue that for most companies, that's not really the case. It's not always the good decisions. Maybe it's like more the changes that kills you slowly over time. I think you know what changes I'm talking about, Erik. Can you give us some real life examples, please?
Exactly. Yeah, but it can be like trying out new price modules, right? And now we can see like with what we're talking about today with AI agents, right? Everybody wants to have agents in their platform, and how do we price that? How we're gonna sell it? And all of those kind of complexity that we build around this, I would say, like, and how do we price and how do we charge for it? I think those are maybe the main changes that I can see kind of affecting this a lot as well.
Yeah. And I guess it's not entirely new either. Just looking a few years back, there was a lot of discussions. What's the perfect mix between recurring fixed fees and what should be variable? How should we combine this to sort of both have predictability but also optimize revenue? It just feels like the current AI revolution has sped up the pace of companies wanting to do changes to the pricing model. But I think there's been changes throughout all time, right? And it usually accumulate a lot of complexity and problem. It's not necessarily that the product got more complicated. Maybe it's how do we package it? How do we put out new offerings on the market? How do we do our land and expand strategy? So there's a lot of things changing, right? That's probably for all companies.
What I because now it moves faster as well than maybe it did in the past, right? It goes super fast at the moment.
And every new way you charge, it's not only affecting one person in the company. It usually is across that full line that you described in the beginning, all the way from how do we sell it, how do we manage the contract, how do we bill it, etc. So very much accumulating. All right, so we kind of understand, okay, it's messy, right? And changes come more frequent than ever before. And I think everyone is looking at AI to provide the solution. And of course we do. It's clear, right, that AI advancement will really, really change how organizations work, how people interact with it, both in the personal life and also at work. I mean, we just recently we just measured internally the number of code lines produced by AI with human oversight, and we're currently above 90%. So we foresee 100% before the end of the year. So I guess that is one example. But I mean, all functions are looking at this, like whether it's support, marketing, or finance. How can we be more efficient? And interesting, I had a conversation the other week with an operator sharing that they were at such a high token consumption that they were really starting to think about employing junior humans as a more cost-efficient alternative, which I sort of felt like, going full circle and just put another perspective to it. But maybe it's not like so much about whether to use AI anymore. We're past that, right? But what about like when does it make most sense, and how can we pinpoint which tasks it would provide the highest value for? What are your thoughts on that, Erik?
Yeah, but I agree, and I think we all can in this forum and in our space generally, like AI is not going anywhere, right? So it's kind of how do we use it more efficient and connecting to the costs as well, right? I think one important topic to talk about there as well, it's maybe they have the token cost, that's one part, right? But maybe when it comes to like finance and having an autonomous lifecycle and agent running, it's also about the structure of your data that you currently have, right? Because if the data is unstructured, if it's messy, if it's scattered in different silo systems and everywhere, right? Of course the token spend will be high, right? Because you will probably ask more questions to it. You might need to dig into your agents more, right? And also, so I would say like I think the core foundation here is also like how do we get the structured data in those kind of processes that we want to implement an agent and keep that data structured. It will not only save your like token spent, but also of course the replies and the agents will act more correctly, or how I should say it basically, right? Based on that. So I think that's also one thing to take in consideration in this part as well.
Definitely. And maybe if you've already solved how to get from A to B, maybe you don't need an AI for that. Maybe it's already done. Maybe you can use AI for something even better. So how do we sort of accumulate and layer things on top rather than sort of solving old things? I think that is also very much of the discussion at the moment. But still, like, I mean, the question that always pops up, right? I mean, can't AI just fix our messy data? I think it's a reasonable claim to some sense, and I think we've all seen what AI can do in terms of, you know, maybe reconciliation or crunching big data sets with amazing results and you know, saving a lot of time. Maybe we can also relate to being a bit swayed by the immediate, that's a great idea, that you get all the time you propose anything. And maybe that also, you know, makes us lower our guards a bit and sometimes allow not only the highest quality to sit through. But still, Erik, I mean, we ourselves use AI tooling for consolidating data migration, for instance. And what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, but I think, like, yes, AI can fix your messy data, of course, right? And you mentioned, like, we do it for our data migration, and not all our prospects and new customers have perfect structure in the data, right? And they should be fitted into a system and so on, right? So for that, it's super good. But I think a nuance here is also, like, talking about a one-time fixing messy data, putting it into a system. The other part is like, okay, how do we keep that data structured throughout a customer lifecycle, throughout the company journey and everything, right? So I think, like, it will help you fix your data, but then also, like, so you need something that actually can keep your data in a structured way as well. And that, of course, an AI agent can support in that way as well, of course, right? So I think messy data in general, it doesn't stop an AI agent, right? It will just run on that messy data. But it will kind of cap how far and how good the agent can be, basically, right? The better the data, it's like it has always been in all data words, like the better the data is, the better the output. And there's no difference with AI agents or AI in general as well, right? So I think having this, yes, it can fix your metadata, but still you need something that kind of could have this data structured in a far way, and that will allow you to get more value out of your agents, keeping the token that we talked about spent down and better assumptions from the agents and everything.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time when the idea was to spend a lot of, or like put a lot of people on a task to move things faster and sort of brute force it. And now we're sometimes seeing that with AI as well, like just throw it on there and sort of see where we get to. So I think you're right that it might require to do some deeper thinking on where to use it and where to not, and like budgets. That's what everyone's in, right? You don't have endless resources, so where to use it, and I think that could be a good segue also to our next slide.
Yeah. Now we're kind of coming into, like, how you can use these agents to, like, either you clean up the mess or stop the mess. You can of course use it for both, right, in that scenario. But looking at, we're all humans, right? We're still so far at least, and none of us are perfect. We work in processes. The process can be documented. It can look perfect on paper. It can be everything like that. But mistake will still happen, right? Someone will forget to set that field, or I think a classic example, like PO number. Someone from sales forgot to ask the customer about it, or they typed in the wrong invoice email, or whatever it can be, right? And all of those kind of small mistakes, they are kind of, you can have the process, it can be detailed, ask this, but we are humans, it will be forgotten, right? And I think a lot of this comes as well, like, where do we actually should we spend our time, like we talked about the man hunting perfect field configurations or whatever you want to call it, or should we spend our time on some valuable things? And I think this is where AI agents really can become really powerful, making sure it can. You can, of course, you could have done this before as well, but now it's like you have an agent that can learn your processes. You can easily, without investing in a lot of development time, you can prompt it, right? So you can use kind of your own words to learn how you work, and based on that, you can let the agent check out all of those unglamorous stuff that you don't want to check yourself, right? And doing this continuously with an agent will, of course, allow you to like stop issues before they actually go too far, because when you kind of send that invoice out, for example, and something is wrong, they forgot a discount that was in the terms or conditions that's on the contract and stuff like that, right? It not only will affect finance, like, okay, they need to do a credit, they need to do revert everything, change it. It's also about the trust that you build with your customer, right? They have signed something, you kind of forget to the output that they're delivering from a finance perspective is not exactly what's in the contract. So that kind of you're hurting the trust already in the beginning of the relationship in many cases, right? And I think this is a super valid use case for using an agent, right? To keep track of all of those unglamorous, or whatever we want to call them, stuff in our finance processes.
And sometimes I think many can relate to maybe there's sometimes some tension between like sales and finance, and sometimes a bit of different priorities, we might say, and you know, what is important? Is it the exact field being correctly filled in, or is it closing a deal? And there, you know, there's arguments for both. but anyway, like maybe we can just like, okay, that will fix itself anyway. We will just clear that out, so you don't have to do the change management and just spend your valuable focus time on that. But also like in relationship to your customers, right? I mean, maybe it's not all internal. Maybe it's payment being a bit off, but it should be okay for whatever reason, and no one really has to look at it. We can write off 2 cents or something. So I think there are different scenarios, right? And if we can get a sort of a helper mopping all the floors everywhere, I think that would be pretty awesome. All right. Another topic. So that was sort of more clean up the mess before it becomes an even bigger mess. More operational. I mean, like, all companies more or less have really high expectations that they will do timely renewals and their retention figures will be really high. And, you know, I think that's what everyone is working towards. And especially for many companies in the B2B space, where you might have, you know, a sales-led growth motion, you have custom terms, higher ACV deals. Renewals require quite a lot of work, right? Just preparing the commercial details. And I think this is an example where we did some research ourselves and got some very interesting numbers.
Yeah, but I think looking at this as well, and my past experience in customer success as well, right? Like having a renewal, in many cases, it's a lot of admin work, right? You need to kind of like, okay, we need to gather all the contract details that this customer have before we actually, and maybe what kind of usage do they have in the product, how have they paid their invoices in time and stuff, all of kind of that stuff, right? And a customer success manager spends like 80% of one renewal just gathering everything, putting everything together in a nice email, and kind of like, okay, now we are ready to do the renewal, and maybe they're like 20% on the thing that actually matters for the customer relationship and from the renewal and revenue perspective as well, right? And I think this is where an agent can become really powerful, and kind of, if you have that data in a structured form, sum it up, give your customer success or account managers, whoever it is, that information summarized easily in overview, and let them focus on what's the most important part of, for me at least, being a customer success manager, building that relationship and earning the trust, and not being admins and gathering numbers from a million different sources, right?
I agree.
And I think, yeah, this is powerful.
What stopped us in the past then? Because can't you just like, you know, couldn't you do, isn't this just a few rules?
Yeah, it is. You can of course build this. You can build an integration, right? You can take in some development time. You can build integrations between systems. But then it's kind of also then you're like, okay, you need to hard code those rules. And as we talked about in the beginning as well, right? Right now, everything is moving so fast. Or like price, everything is changing. And so then this comes in place, right? So then you have those hard-coded rules, regulations that are in your integrations. They need to update. They need to stay updated as your business also moves along, right? Instead of having an agent where you can easily adapt and change what it should do, right?
Pretty much in, I
And also
mean,
learn from
clear,
it.
normal language, tell it what to do
Yeah,
and what not to do. And of course, that
exactly.
like lowers the thresholds for so many people to just like direct it and make sure it goes after the right things. Yeah. And as you see, like the 80%, I mean, yeah, do the numbers for any company. I think it quickly adds up to a lot of time. All right.
Yeah, but and we're gonna talk a bit about it because we're seeing, like, of course, the future is here and now. We're living it, right? So more and more agents will be shipped. Of that for sure. If it can be we the deliver agent. You can build your own agents. Agents will be created, right, and live together with us in our daily work. That's I think is not bending the truth in that sense, right? But
Definitely not.
But with those agents as well, right, comes maybe also the challenge, like, okay, where should these agents live, right? It's not like when you have an employee, they have a desk, they sit at work, or they sit at work at home, right? You know where they are, right? And agents, you don't want these agents scattered all over in different systems either, right? So that's kind of how we view this when we work. We call it like a cockpit view or whatever, like where your agents live together. So, and the reason why I think that's important is because even though you are fully autonomous and in an ideal world, right, and they're doing everything for you, you still want to be in control of them, right? You want to be able to, like, what are they doing? You need an audit trail to, like, okay, what happened? What changed what? What happened to this order or whatever it could be, right? And if the agent did a change, you need to be able to audit it back, and also like turn it off if something is going really, really wrong, right? And if you have all of these agents scattered, that also becomes complex, right? Because where do you find the agents? Where do they live? Do they live on someone's laptop somewhere or somewhere else, right? So I think that's maybe our Younium angle or whatever we should say on this as well, right? To have one home for these agents that you can actually see what they're doing and what they have done and what's coming in the future as well.
Definitely, and if we see it as a future org chart being a mix of humans and agents, it makes sense that it would be with some governance and some controls in place, and especially if they become many, which I think there will not be one or two or three. There will be so many of them, and like figure out where they are, where what they do, what changed. How do we sort of steer them in the right direction if we take a new direction as a company? How do we do that? So that is definitely a big topic for us, and I think our thoughts around cockpit is like where they also in the future will work together, and it could be both, agents for us, but it could also be external agents as well. So I definitely a core component of how to do this. And maybe that also brings us to the next topic.
Yeah. I think everybody, I think at Aramet, like we want to be fully autonomous. At least that's the ideal picture, right? And I think you don't get there from 0 to 100 in one go, right? I think the most important here is kind of like we see. Maybe I see it more as a ladder, right? You kind of climb it to get there, right? So, and I think you have to start with something, right? So maybe like in this case, like you have any agent that assists you, that tells you something is coming up to where you should do this, right? And they kind of like, okay, let's do it. And then that agent can learn, of course, right? So then it can recommend a solution. Okay, last time we did this, so now I recommend that you do this. And on top of that, right, then you can, as farther up the ladder you go, right, you can build that autonomous revenue lifecycle, revenue stream, or whatever process up, right? Because I think there's a danger in here as well, right? Trying to aim for the top, right, at the first go and not ship anything. I think then you're kind of stuck in the loop of just piloting around and not being able to deliver anything, right? So I think that's important to keep in mind as well, right? So that's kind of what this ladder kind of should represent in that sense, right? How to get there in those steps.
Absolutely. And I think like for us as well as a company, I mean, there is some value in the first steps, but I think like it's also what being a vendor and nowadays in this space is like. You need to be on the right side, so you're also producing and making available things that are not just putting in an LLM and getting an assistant. So that's where we're very much putting our focus as well, like to help companies move faster. But still, I think like if supervised autonomy would be true for everything right now, there would be no need for companies. Then it would be all automated, and we're still sort of in the mix of both deciding and also supervising. All right. So moving on.
I think this is your favorite topic, right, Niclas? No, but I think I think in general, like that, building an agent itself, it can take an afternoon, right?
Yep.
And then you say like, okay, I have built some agents, right? And I feel like, okay, I did this in the afternoon. Why should anybody pay for this, right? Why like? And I kind of like, I think many people hear that from the board, the CEO, or whatever. It can be like, how hard can it? As Niclas said in the beginning, his favorite word, like, how hard can it be, right? So, and I think that's the question, right? And why? How hard can it be? And why don't we build it just ourselves? I think, yeah.
I think it's fair, and I mean, I think more or less every company out there are trying to build things right now and sort of seeing what works, what doesn't work, etc. And I think we're all a bit amazed what can be done in a short period of time. I also think that most of us realize that okay, getting that first part right is super fast. Maintaining something, dealing with input from many stakeholders, etc., making sure it's not only working in the perfect case, it's also all the fringe cases. You know, you want to go on vacation, but someone changes something at the same time, it needs to be fixed. It's like, I'm not sure the problem really with building custom solution. I mean, that custom solutions were there 10 years ago, 20 years ago as well. We've always been doing that. I think it's the same reasoning now. I mean, AI can do things, especially building things, faster. But I'm not sure the development part was the biggest issue in the past, really. I think it was a realization that most companies want to have focus on serving their customers. So it was a build or buy, potentially partner decision. And now I think we're sort of for at least sometimes saying, okay, maybe we can build everything ourselves, and sort of questioning all the old truths. I think we will come back a bit to, focusing a bit more on serving our customers and maybe a bit less on building everything ourselves. Because in the end, all vendors and all customers and all part, everyone's using the same tools. It's not like only someone got access to Claude or ChatGPT. We all do. So that's like even play field. Like we all have that. There's no difference in that. So then it becomes more around like who takes responsibility, who makes sure it runs, who take care of all the new input, who makes the changes, who is on top of things, what are the insurances, what are the service level agreements, etc. But also focus. I still believe in design. It's not all about production, it's also about design and creativity, and I think there is room for that. And it becomes very difficult for everyone to be an expert in everything, even with Claude and ChatGPT and all the other models. So I think we'll fairly soon get back to like we all would want our engineers, our teams to focus on serving our customers with what we're doing the best, and just have someone else doing the other stuff. So I think that will still hold up.
Yeah.
So maybe the question isn't this one. Maybe it's more about like, what should you focus on? All right. We're getting toward the end of today's session. We talked about common problems, what efficient agents are, and as you see it, like the combination of a guardrail platform and agents being a future platform of choice. Erik, I mean, if someone's watching does one thing on Monday, what should it be, and what should they ignore for another year?
And maybe don't try to fully automate the full life cycle yet, right, on Monday, but maybe focus on one core process that is quite cumbersome today, maybe, and try to like, okay, we really dig down that and try to improve that and ship something related to this. How can we automate this process? Not try to take a too huge bite, or how you say in English, right? It's kind of like, okay. And I think the most important thing is like, how do we get the clean data in this process? How can we improve this process? And then we take the next, and then we move on to the next. I think that's the most important thing, right? So you don't get stuck in the loop of not shipping or doing anything. So I would say that focus on one core process in the beginning, right? So maybe on renewals and on Monday, say 80%. Maybe it could be the main topic.
So don't automate the life cycle, automate one workflow on clean data and earn the next. Thank you.
Well, then I think we have some questions received from the audience.
Nice.
Starting with the first question, and this was, can you use Younium with external tools like Claude?
Yes, you can. With our MCP, you can connect it to Claude, yes, or ChatGPT or similar tools.
Okay, great. I think the question is answered with that. And we also got actually a question about the pricing for the AI agent package.
So our AI agent package is very nice at the moment. It's included, and we're going the route of having it included to a certain extent in the platform fee for existing customers. It will definitely be a cap, and there will be credits, and yeah, same thing as for you, but there will also be included a certain amount in the platform. So that's how it is.
Okay, thanks for answering the question. Another Younium question. Do you have customer using their own agents with Younium?
Yes, I've seen a couple of use cases actually, right? So also where they have like focused on one process and build an agent around that at the moment, right? So yes, we have a couple of them, or pretty many, and maybe also many that we don't really know about, right? That we haven't seen yet. So yes, but we have seen quite a few.
Okay, and then we have one last question, and this is: how do you see AI role in Younium? AI's
That's a
role.
big one. That's a big one. But I think so on a more general level, AI will be the fabric of Younium. It will not be like bolted on features. And I think we're seeing it already in various parts, everything from like having onboarding agents to get started more quickly, whether that is like how to gather and clean up and do data migrations from the get-go, or how to connect to existing systems. But there are also like daily operations agents, actually a few in private beta right now, and coming typically around like billing, payments, dunning, renewal, data validation, and you saw some glimpses of that today as well. But I mean, we also see others like closing agents, how to really do the monthly close and get all of that done, and you know, there's a bit of a workflow. It's not just clicking a button. It's a lot of things happening. And there are also more strategic, like dynamic price optimization agents, and a lot of good stuff. So it won't be just in one place. It will be everywhere, and it's already everywhere in our day-to-day work, and it will be everywhere in Younium as well.
Okay, thanks so much, Niclas, for answering the questions. This was also our last question, so I think we are coming to the end of this webinar. Niclas, Erik, thank you so much for this great discussion, also the insights. And to everyone who joined today, thank you so much for your time and also the questions you asked. And we hope that you found the session insightful, and you can take also away some inspiration for your daily work. Great, that was it from our side. Thank you again, and we hope to see you at our next Younium webinar. And I wish you a great afternoon. Bye.
Right.
Bye.